Hi everyone, so in this video we're going to be talking about how to do an ANOVA. So we're going to talk specifically about the factorial ANOVA in this one, and then in another video I will show you the one-way ANOVA. So for the factorial ANOVA, basically about ANOVA in general, an ANOVA is comparing the effects of two or more independent variables simultaneously in a factorial ANOVA. So basically this allows us to look at the main effects and interactions like we discussed in class. And for this we need our IV to be nominal, so categorical, and our DV to be at least interval. So it can be interval, ratio, or scale, as long as it's something that's a measurable thing that we can get like a mean from or look at a sum score, that kind of thing. Anything that can be measured in that way and is not categorical will work for our dependent variable. So for this particular example, we're going to be using the torture data set once again. So basically, if you need the refresher, this was a data set where participants were asked questions about the use of torture, but they were randomly assigned to either a torture or enhanced interrogation group. And for the enhanced interrogation group, the questions, torture was worded as enhanced interrogation instead of torture. And the idea was that if we called it enhanced interrogation instead of torture, people would have greater attitudes towards using it because it doesn't sound as negative and serious as when it's called torture. So our research question for our factorial ANOVA is, does the effective label, so enhanced interrogation versus torture, this could also be the effect of condition, on support for torture differ depending on the participant's gender. So basically here what we have is our two IVs. So we have the condition, so enhanced interrogation versus torture condition, and then our second IV is gender, and in this particular data set we just had male and female, so that's our second IV, and then our dependent variable is the attitudes towards the use of torture. So stating the research question again, does the effect of the condition on support for torture differ depending on participant gender? So let's run through this and we can kind of explain what's happening as we go through it. So to do a factorial ANOVA, we're going to go to Analyses, and then we're going to click on ANOVA, and then we're just going to click on this one that's called ANOVA. Okay, so what we're going to do is take our our independent variables, so we have condition and gender, and we're going to move these into fixed factors, which is just our independent variables for this case. So we can just know that fixed factors is where you put independent variables. And then gender. And then for our dependent variable, we have the attitudes measure. So we obviously would put our dependent variable into the dependent variable window. And then the things that we're going to want to check off for this one, we're going to want to check off the eta squared, which is just a measure of effect size. And then we're also going to want to look into this estimated marginal means category, and we're going to drag and drop both condition and gender across, and that's just going to give us this figure here. Let me make sure that I have everything. Okay, I believe that I have everything there now. So now we're going to look at our ANOVA results. So basically we have our ANOVA table. There's just one table for this, just our ANOVA table. So looking across, we have the different conditions. So, and then we have the gender, and these are the main effects. So main effect of condition, main effect of gender, and then we have the interaction of condition times gender. So I know we've talked a lot about main effects and interactions in class, so this is just showing what this looks like statistically. So what we're going to focus on, so firstly you'll see you have 1 degree of freedom for each of these, so you would report this 1, and then you would put a comma, and then report this residual degree of freedom, so it would be 1, 287, and you can see that in the PowerPoint that we talked through in class. So for this, our F value, which is like our ANOVA like statistic, we use the F statistic for an ANOVA. We can see for condition is a 5.279, which just focus on the p-value mostly when we're looking at this. So you can look at the p-value and see that it's a 0.022. So because this is below a 0.05, we can say that there is a significant main effect of condition. And now for gender, looking at it, our f-value is 0.245, and we can kind of see that this is a lot lower than the other f-value, a lot closer to 0. So then it's not surprising when we look over and see that there is an insignificant, non-significant p-value. And then when we look at the interaction, we see the same thing. We see 0.328 for our f-value, and our p-value is a 0.568. So non-significant also. So what we're seeing is that there's a main effect of condition, there is no main effect of gender, and there is no interaction. Which makes sense because looking at this, these look pretty similar overall. The large confidence intervals kind of make it a little bit harder to tell because it looks like scores varied a lot. But overall, like here we're seeing this torture group looks pretty similar to each other, whereas the enhanced interrogation group differed a little bit, or was a little bit higher. And another thing to note is like whether the confidence intervals overlap with each other or not. So we can see that like these confidence intervals overlap completely, these ones also overlap completely. And then so that's for the different genders. And then we can see that this, like for the torture ones, they don't overlap quite as much, especially for the males it looks like, but we didn't have a main effect of gender, so not statistically significant. So for this, when the confidence intervals are pretty large like this, it's kind of harder to tell visually, so I would just focus on the p-values and seeing that we have a 0.02 on this one, so we know it's significant, and these other ones are too high, so we know that they're not significant. And that's all you would look at for an ANOVA. And for reporting the results, you can look at the PowerPoint document that we had for class. All right, thank you.